Happy Monday, everybody. We are back. We are making some recycled t-shirt yarn today, and I will be leading you through that. So I hope that we have some friends, even if you're not creating with us. Ideally, that's the hope, but even if you just want to check out how we do it, so you can get some ideas for how you can use old recycled t-shirts down the line, that would be amazing. Apologies for being a few minutes late. You know how when you plan a task and you're like, oh yeah, I can grocery shop in 15 minutes before I do my IG live, and then you look and you're like, ah! Anyways, speaking for a friend. So I'm super excited to see everyone here today. My name is Sarah Krajewski. I host your Make Art With Me IG lives as well as the creative talks that we have. And this is a place where everyone is an artist, where we're creating together, we're building community and supporting each other as educators and creatives. So we're gonna jump right into it. And the things that you'll need today are essentially an old t-shirt. So I'm going to be using this rainbow one that I have. You're also going to need scissors, and then I like to use a cutting board, like a fabric cutting board. But again, if you want to just cut in the air, you can do that too. And I personally like to use rotary cutters when I'm doing a lot at one time, but I'm going to show you with the scissors today just because that's probably your most classic way to do it, and I want to keep it as attainable as possible. So if you have any questions along the way, drop them into the chat and I'll do my best to answer them. And then after the chat, I will be sharing and saving this IGTV video so you can follow along, check it out later if you want to make t-shirt yarn with us. So real quick background before I get into actually making it is this year in my elementary classroom, we got our hands on a friendly loom. And a friendly loom, they come in lots of different sizes, but the one that we have is like 4 feet across, and it's got these peg posts on it, and it's really beautiful, and we have it as one of our choice stations in our classroom. So when students finish their steps for the day, they can choose to do building, sketchbook, free choice drawing, relaxation carpet, or weaving. And I have been using t-shirt yarn to weave with because it goes a little bit faster than just yarn. And the essence of recycling is really, really awesome too. And we've been collecting t-shirts from simply just the families at our school. So I put out an all call to our families and said, does anyone have t-shirts that they don't need that they were planning to recycle? And I got bins and bags of them. I felt like a Goodwill store for a second. So just be prepared for that. But it was amazing. And I still have many, many more. So that's also a really good task that when I have parent volunteers or substitutes in my classroom, I just leave out the directions for how to cut t-shirt yarn, and then they can do that as like a helpful job for me. So if you're looking for ways to use t-shirts in your classroom, just kind of put out that information to the people that you work with or your students or the families in your district and see if anyone is willing to donate. So I just grabbed a few. You can use any t-shirts. Honestly, the bigger the better because that just gives you more fabric. And I even had some students donating things like old sheets. They were donating like leggings and stuff, so you could just kind of cut them apart however you'd like. But I'm going to show you a very classic way to cut t-shirt yarn from my friend Emily Balsley, who I learned it from her, but of course there's like lots of different ways you can do it. I'm just going to keep it simple for you. So you would end up with like a ball of t-shirt yarn. This is like one t-shirt. Same with this. These are all just like one t-shirt. And we use the yarn for weaving. I have my small looms here. These smaller looms are from Melissa and Doug, and I got them from Amazon, and they're perfect for like mobile weaving. So my little kiddos, especially my kindergartners, love to take these, and then I let them go under the table and weave like they're in a cave, or they can take them to the carpet or kind of move with them if they want to do some weaving that's a little bit more like on the go besides our giant loom. So here's how we're going to cut some t-shirt yarn. Can I just see those of you that are joining us today right now, can you drop into the chat for me? Is anyone going to be cutting a t-shirt along with me? Just be like, I am, so I know who else is going to be cutting with us, so I know quite how fast to go. Just send it in the chat. You kind of need to cut depending on your loom. So for example, this smaller loom, we do like one huge ball of t-shirt yarn, and then I just cut strips that are just a little bit longer. Yay, Whiprit! Yes, perfect. We just do like strips that are a little bit longer than the loom or a little wider, and then I just have the tassels kind of dangle off the end, and you can either tie them, you could sew them together, you could trim them, you could turn it into a fringe and do it sideways, but we just cut our pieces so they're a little bit longer. So, t-shirt yarn, let's do it! Okay, I have a very large t-shirt here, but basically, we're going to get rid of I feel bad. I feel like Abby Shook-Eye would be really upset with me cutting up a tie-dye t-shirt. Maybe not. She loves tie-dye. But we're gonna basically get rid of the sleeves right now, and then cut it into 2 rectangles. So I'm wondering I'm trying to decide if it might be easier for me to show you on a smaller t-shirt. I'm just gonna stick to the tie-dye, and y'all can join me. So basically, when we cut, we're trying to make flat panels. And then those panels are going to become long strips. And the strips, because of the nature of most t-shirts, you can pull those strips and they become this kind of like fine, more yarn, like rolled up texture like this. And that becomes a little bit easier for students to weave with than something that's kind of like a ribbon. So we always kind of just like yank them and pull them tight. And then these are the spots where the direction of cut changes, and it makes this kind of little flap. So that adds a fun little texture to it. So the first thing you're going to do is take your t-shirt and cut right underneath the armpits straight across. So I'm going to do this on my cutting mat, and I hope that y'all can kind of see what I'm doing. I feel like that's okay. Tell me if I need a little bit more of an adjustment. But I'm going to cut off right below the armpits so I have like a big rectangle. I'm going to come down just a little bit more here for y'all. Okay. And like I said, I usually use a rotary cutter at school, and because I have so many t-shirts, I don't really do it super duper perfect, just because it's kind of like, let's get the gist, let's kind of just get it going. But if you want to be more precise, you can use a yardstick to help you cut along a line. You can use one of those cool like fabric cutting boards to get a straight edge. But we're just going to do it kind of rough and tumble today. So that's the first thing, is cut off below the armpits. We're going to set that to the side, and I'll show you how to do that one in a second. Okay, this one, I am going to cut off the sleeves. This would be like such a cute crop top. I was actually cutting these, fun fact, I was cutting these one day during class as the kids were working, and I was making all the t-shirt yarn. And a kid came over and was watching me, and he's like, "Oh, Miss K, can I wear that?" And I'm like, okay, well, I can't deny this. So he like put it on over his shirt and had this like itty bitty little Be Kind crop top. It was very silly. Anyways, so now you're going to cut off the sleeve. So we're taking this top part and turning it into 2 rectangular panels. So I'm taking my sleeves and I'm kind of cutting on the string part, or the seam, because this is really hard to pull tight, since typically that stitch doesn't have a lot of elasticity. So we're just trying to like leave this stuff for scraps. I usually save all of these pieces and I'll cut them into smaller strips that the kids can create with. You can cut down this seam and do longer strips that would work really well for like these smaller looms. I've even seen people that have saved these and then just done strips and like tied them or braided them together for like recycled dog toys. So don't be afraid to, we're art teachers, but don't be afraid to save some of your extra pieces and see what you can create with them. Okay, so sleeves I'm going to put to the side. Again, you can use them, but for the sake of today's simplicity, we're going to just leave them. Okay, so I've cut off below the armpits, cut off the sleeves. And now I'm going to just cut this into more of a straight rectangle so I have a clean edge to cut with. So I'm going to cut the neck part off. You can get a little bit like funky with it if you want, but I find that the best way to do this is just to make everything very rectangular. And after our chat today, we'll be sharing the worksheet that I use for my friend Emily when I explain it to my subs or people that are helping. And that kind of just describes what the directions are to cut t-shirt yarn. So now I'm left with 2 panels. Okay, they'll look like this. These are rectangles. And then my longer, wider part that's at the bottom. So I'm going to cut my 2 panels the same way. And I'm essentially going to kind of cut like a zigzag. So for this, I think I might use my rotary cutter just so I don't have to like confuse y'all with my screen. But I'm going to cut up one way and then back the other way. So up this one way and then back the other way, but I'm leaving kind of like a little mountain at one side. Maybe it'll just make more sense if I show you. I'm doing a really good job teaching y'all. But I'm gonna stop just short, and then the next part I'm gonna go the other way, but stop a little bit short. So I'm making like a little zigzag. So we're gonna do rotary right now. I like to cut about 1 inch across because that tends to give a pretty good pull when you kind of split stuff up. So about like, you know, maybe 2 fingers wide. And then see how I left a little bit attached here at the end? Now I'm gonna come back down the other way and then stop here, not going all the way to the end, okay? So just based on how my board is, I'm gonna always cut from the right so I don't hurt myself. Then I'm gonna go all the way off. So now this is making my zigzag, right? I've got up, down, like this way. Okay, next, you can probably guess the pattern. Coming here. So I've got this one, and I'm gonna keep going. And I'm just opening it so you can see what I'm doing, but obviously you could probably do this faster, could even maybe stack your fabric. So you can cut both of your rectangular sheets at one time if you were like real speedy, but you know how it goes. Okay, this one, I think based on how much space I have, I only really have space for one of these like this. Okay. Give me a thumbs up. Am I going too fast, y'all? Is this good? Is this fine? I feel like it's hard when there's no like affirmation. The kids are like, or they're like glassy eyed. So hopefully this makes sense so y'all can make your own t-shirt yarn. I also save a few of these. I have 2 cats and I save them so that like we could just throw the ball of t-shirt yarn to the cats and know that they're not going to swallow it and have this like really traumatic string situation. So also a very fun thing is to use the t-shirt yarn for animals. Anyway, so I've got my zigzag here, and this is a really fun thing for students to create, not the cutting part necessarily, but like the next step. So I usually won't do this myself because it's just time that I could be using to do something else. But basically what I have my students do is pull. So they're going to start from a little end here and just kind of tug, and it gives this memory where the edges curl up on themselves, and then the t-shirt is a lot skinnier. Sometimes it gets kind of like fun and funky on lettering. Like that, but they like to see, you know, try to find pictures in what you're doing. I would warn you if you're going to tear this way, sometimes if you pull too tight, you could technically like tear this, see what I mean? So you kind of need to not like yank it, but sort of hold it at that little tab where the turn went and then pull tight. So I'm just pulling and kind of making the yarn more skinny. Whoops, see what I mean about the pulling? Careful of the tab, Sarah, like this. Pulling all the way to the end until it's nice and skinny. And then got just a couple more feet here. Got like a whole roll, and this is just from one of those rectangles. So all of this is just from one rectangle, and I'm gonna do the same thing to the other side. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to show you how to do the big panel, but you would do the same thing that I just showed you over on this bigger or this smaller rectangle to do the same thing over here. Okay, so for the big panel, we're gonna do this at the same time. Instead of like cutting these in rectangles and then pulling it off and doing one at a time, I'm gonna show you how to do this together so you can maximize your efficiency. All right, so one end of this huge rectangle is going to be sliced. You can decide to keep this like bottom edging if you want. I usually just leave it because I'm like the more fabric the merrier. But if you're doing something that you want it to be really crispy, you could just consider cutting off that little edge. And then we're gonna just cut either like a small strip up the side or just cut with your scissors and open up one side. So again, this was kind of like a big huge circle. Right? If I were to open it up, this is a huge circle, but I just cut one side, and I'm going to slice up from the fold. So I have one side here that's open, and then this side that's closed. I'm going to cut from the fold. Does anyone have like traumatic memories of teaching kids how to cut hearts or butterflies and telling them to cut from the fold when you're teaching symmetry, and then like lots of things that end up in half? Anyways, cut from the fold, my friends. Okay, so we've got this edge open, I'm going to cut from the fold, and I'm essentially going to do a bunch of strips all the way to the end. And they should be the same width as the previous yarn that you already made. And I'm going to use my rotary cutter again just for quickness, but you're welcome to use your scissors. And I'm going to just slide while I know it's pretty lined up from the fold up to the end, and then stop. So I'm stopping probably maybe 1.5 inches to the edge. Again, from the fold, slice up, and stop. And you can see how having a bigger t-shirt is going to be better because you're just going to get way more yarn from it. It was so sweet because I had a lot of families that donated t-shirts when I asked for recycled t-shirts, but then had like some itty bitty little kid shirts that were donated, which was super awesome. But I ended up, if they were in good quality, I ended up just donating those then to our school office so that kids that needed extra clothing at school could use those. So you kind of need to just decide if a small t-shirt is worth your time. So these are all in strips. I've got them cut about 1 inch across. And now I'm going to do my little trick at the top to make it so that I don't have to cut that zigzag. I'm just going to like slice it with my scissors. So again, this whole side is stuck together with that piece. Same on the back. And I'm going to line these up and just cut in a pattern where I go on top and then the next one on the bottom. On top, the next one on the bottom. On top and on bottom. So I'm going to keep going that way, but I'm using my scissors for this. So let's see if it works, because sometimes I make mistakes. So I'm going to go up here on the top, slice. Okay, next one is the second one in on the bottom. Okay, top. I mean, I guess I could just cut all the way across one, but I feel like now I'm committed to this. Top, bottom, top, bottom. All right, so after you get all the way across, you're gonna end up, fingers crossed, with one huge zigzag piece with these little tabs where it turns the corner. And then you can do that little trick where you pull it all apart. So this one, and then I think is that my end? Y'all, this is a Monday. Yes! Check it out. I succeed. Woo! Okay, so now this, you're just gonna yank it this way and pull them tight, and keep going until it's just a little bit more like yarn texture. Again, be careful about these spots because if you pull really tight, you're probably gonna rip it in half. Sometimes if they become smaller pieces, I'll just tie them together because I don't want to like mess too much with having it be like a real fancy connection. But if you want to get fancy with it, once I pull this off, I'm going to show you how to tie them together in kind of a trick way that doesn't need or doesn't give you any knots. So I'm going to pull these guys off. And eventually I'll have like an entire huge roll of this t-shirt yarn so that I can weave with my students. Now, for the sake of ease in my classroom on our friendly loom, I always pre-cut the strips so they're just, like I said before, just a little bit longer than the width of the loom. So each kiddo, if they go to the weaving station, just picks a strip and then weaves. And they can weave as many strips as they want, but then they're not trying to like weave this big chunk of yarn through the loom, especially since they typically only have a little bit of time. And that seems to work really well for us. So I'm pulling, I'm almost done, I swear. I feel like the completionist in me just needs to finish this. So y'all just get to watch this happen. Okay. It's kind of sad because it flipped the reverse way, so it's very pastel instead of like the bright rainbow way, but what you gonna do? Okay, so I've got the big part here of the whole t-shirt. I've got this little one that I already pre-cut. And I'm just going to show you a little trick on how you can put the ends together if you don't want to tie them. So if you want to have an entire roll of t-shirt yarn, but you don't want to have them all like in little pieces, a little trick you can do is just do 2 little cuts in here and then just essentially slide them through and pull them. Again, if I do this in my classroom, I usually just tie them super speedy because that goes pretty fast. But here's the tying trick. So we're gonna slice a little notch or a little hole, a little opening in both ends of my pieces. And this is just to connect everything so it stays together as one huge roll. And then I'm gonna slide one of these tabs through like this, and then bring my end, well, wherever that is, through the hole. Wait, what did I do? Y'all, this is insane. Like, typically I would not have 2 feet to work on. Okay, well, you know what? We're going to pretend, because me searching for that is going to cause a lot of anxiety. So basically you're just going to pull this guy, and then if you knew where the end was of this blue one, you could just put the end through here, and then pull it tight, and these two are going to come together like a friendly little knot. Like, okay. Did that make any sense? It's fine. I'm just going to tie them together because that's sort of like how I do it in the classroom. Because I don't really mind these little fringy little pieces that come out. I feel like that kind of just shows off the nature of the recycled t-shirt. So I just like it like that. All right, so now you can roll it all up and start weaving. Because I have a smaller loom here, I don't need like all of mine in like this big, huge, long cluster. So I'm just going to use a little piece. And like I said, I just cut these to be a little bit wider than my loom. So this guy right here, we're doing a little pattern here. And I always like to just have a little extra, especially with my tiny little kinders and the ones that have very small motor skills that they're working on. And then you can just weave. So this is a really fun way to weave. And honestly, I think there's something really helpful about the weaving going fast. Like, I set these out for our art show last week for families and parents and students to do together in the library. And I saw at one point, you know, each of the looms were filled with kiddos that were weaving on them. And this little chunk happened in like, you know, an hour or something of them not even being completely full or woven on. So that's the nice thing, because I feel like when you give a kid a huge loom like this and then have them weave with yarn, it just takes forever and they feel like they're not getting anywhere, which is fine, but it's just, it's nice to feel that sense of accomplishment. And because the t-shirt yarn is so wide, it just goes so much faster. So I'm just doing a classic A-B pattern every other, and then just tuck it down, keep on going. So that's what you can do with your t-shirt yarn once you cut it. And like I said, I save all of my scraps so that anytime we have some choice day or some building days, then the kids will have something that's a little bit more fiber-based to play with. So I would save these sleeves and just set that whole thing out, or kind of leave it as some option for kiddos to use when they are creating their artwork. I'm going to at least weave this orange piece because now I got to get to the end of it. All right, y'all. This is it. I also really love these tiny little looms because the kids can weave across from each other really easily. So like when you set them down on the floor, I'll usually have like, you know, a kindergartner on each side, and it's magical. And they're just like, one's weaving down here and one's weaving up there, and they're just like pressing them down to the bottom. And it's very fun, and it's something that's really quick to do, but also is really, I feel like it's pretty successful for the kids to see progress. Okay, so I just kind of zipped through that. I'm very warm, but I hope that even if you don't use t-shirts or recycled t-shirts in your classroom, you can at least see the potential that collecting things that are typically, you know, gifted to, or, you know, given to Goodwill or not really typically kept, but use that as something that you can create in your classroom. And after this, I'll be sharing what we did with our t-shirt rugs. So again, we've been doing this on our huge friendly loom in our classroom, and we've made 8 rugs that are like classic, you know, floor rugs. And we have donated them to students in our school. During the art show, they were able to essentially kind of like do a raffle. So I guess it's not completely donated, but they could pay $1 to get 5 tickets and then put their name in the raffle for which rugs they liked. And then we pulled those names out, and students got to take home a t-shirt rug if they were a winner. And it was super fun because I don't need 8 t-shirt rugs, but I do know that they want them and they're really excited about them. So I'll be sharing those after the fact. If you were joining us today with even just watching or were creating with us and cutting t-shirt yarn, please feel free to share in your story and use the hashtag AOEULive so that I can see who joined us today. If you want to post a picture in your story or in your feed after the fact so I can see what's up, that'd be awesome. And then join us next week, and I will be posting the materials that you will need for next week. We will be making some more art on Monday to make art with me. So yes, I see a question from Margaret. Let's see, where do you get your t-shirts from? So I just asked for donations from my students. So I just sent out like an all school email and said, you know, Mrs. K is creating recycled t-shirt rugs in our classroom with our new Loom, and said, please send old t-shirts with your students to school that you no longer need. I mean, everybody has t-shirts, and it's just a matter of like catching them before they end up at Goodwill and then bringing them to school. If you don't want to like collect them all and you feel like that's like a little overwhelming or you don't know what you're gonna get, typically at Goodwill or places like that, there's like bags of t-shirts that are like, you know, $5 or something. Or I mean, I haven't tried, but maybe you could ask some of those places and see if they would be willing to donate them to your classroom if you kind of explain the situation. Sometimes it doesn't hurt to ask, so you can see what's up with that. I will be saving this IGTV, so if you want to learn how to make your own t-shirt yarn or share it with somebody else after the fact, you can just go right to our IGTV and save it or share it there with anyone that you would like to show what we were up to today. So I hope y'all had an amazing Monday. Keep trucking. I know I've got like 3 weeks left of school, but we can do it. I believe in you. Have an excellent Monday. Bye, friends.